Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Get ready for Talking Heads, the show where expert insights meet world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Brought to you by USA Global TV and Radio. Meet our distinguished presenters. From the great state of Texas, longevity expert, award-winning author, publisher, and distinguished Toastmaster, red.olaughlin. From London, England, soul heart awakener, novelist, vocal coach, and artist, Dr. Madeline Chan. Also from England, the Harley Street stress expert, therapist, ambassador for peace, and speaker, Carolyn Heward. And from Australia, ICF PCC credentialed coach, entrepreneur, and leadership coach, Mariska Dupria. Experience their expertise, connect with their wisdom, and transform your perspective. Watch Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. This video and its contents are the property of USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. Visit usaglobaltv.com for more details.
Howdy, y'all. This is red.olaughlin. We're on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And I want to share with you something today. I thought might be with a blue background, but they're not showing up. A couple of these are pink, a couple of these are yellow-white, but they're plumerias. And when you go to Hawaii and you get a lei, they're usually made up of that. I grow them here in Houston, Texas, and I maybe have 100 plants outside, probably about 60 of them I'm trying to sell my first time ever. But anyway, getting back to our topic today on Talking Heads, why am I showing you these flowers, these plumerias? Well, if you see people usually in movies, they'll wear them over their ear. And if it's a left ear, it means they're married. If it's a right ear, it means they're looking. But today is my 57th wedding anniversary. And I got ready to start the show, not this one, 2 shows ago, the corner bookstore. And my wife brought me up a very, very nice card along with some flowers she picked off of a couple of the trees that we have. And a glass of orange juice and a big mug of iced tea that I sip on periodically. And so my last show, a guest didn't show up, so we expedited me being a guest on my own show and using Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck as the host of the show. And that worked out very well. But I'm back to being my own host, and I'm kind of rambling along, so let me get right to the deal. Today's show is, let me get my slides lined up here so we could talk to that. Okay. Today, Longevity Secrets Updated. 5-6 years ago, I wrote a book called Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging. And I talked about, essentially, I think the subtitle was how to live to 100 years of age with the body of a healthy 50-year-old and mind of a 25-year-old. And I looked at your overall body aging, your heart aging, your mind, your everything. I try to look at just about every part of the body. Well, since then, with AI, a lot easier to look up things. And so now when I do a search on what causes you to age, I'm getting a lot more information, and a lot of it's pretty relevant. So I decided that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'll probably end up talking about it next week because I don't think we're going to get through it all today. But the show is live streamed. Again, it's not a podcast. It's not something that occurs later on. It's not edited. It's all live. Live streamed on Amazon Fire, Zizzle TV, E360 TV, YouTube, a couple channels there, Android TV, Apple TV, social media. I know a couple other channels have been added. And the audio rebroadcast later as podcasts, as audio are also available. Everything I talk about today is for awareness and education. Okay. I'm pretty easy to find. red.olaughlin.com is my primary website. I got a lot of information on there. Red, R-E-D, like the color, O'Laughlin, OLAUGHLIN.com, or you can just Google Red O'Laughlin. You can find all my social media accounts and a lot of other information. But 6 of the books that I have right now available for sale are available on my website or on a number of different locations. The live stream shows, the one that my wife is watching right now, I know, because it's one of the things she does. She watches everything live. So she's watching that right now off of the USA Global TV, coming off of YouTube. You go to streams and live shows. The archives are available there. And I also have a lot of archive shows on my website. Okay, I'm a researcher. I've never been in the medical field, never been in the pharmaceutical field. But I use my chemistry background to research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. I fell in love with chemistry in high school. I got a degree in it, and then I got an additional 4 other academic degrees, different subjects, 7 professional certifications, spent 31 plus years in the military, flew as a naval aviator, Navy captain I retired as, been to 62 countries. But my primary focus nowadays in my retirement is cause and effect relationships. What happens from one cell to the next in the body? And if I understand that, then maybe there's a way to treat something. Can I speed up a reaction? Can I slow it down? Can I stop it? But most of the time we treat symptoms. We don't treat the cause. And the symptoms, may make you feel better, look better, but that same cause is ongoing and it's not ever being fixed. That could get worse. Today I've been married 57 years. And our show on The Wise Ones, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck was a host, and we talked about what does it take to be married 57 years? So 2 kids, 3 grandkids, 1 great-grandson. Best-selling author, I got 6 books, an independent publisher, over 50 books for other people, distinguished Toastmaster. And I've written over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn. Again, this information is for educational purposes only. Last year in 2024, I was the number 2 and number 6 host in total views on The Wise Ones for the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And yesterday I was updated with the fact that I was not only in the top 10 for the first 6 months of this year in total views, but also the number 1 live TV show host on the network. So I'm pretty happy about that. The book I wrote, Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging, again goes into 2 primary causes. One being the telomere attrition at the end of your DNA, and the other one being the degradation of human growth hormone. We'll be talking about those down the road. So let's get into today's show. With the number of slides I have and the number of topics that we're talking about, to do it justice and not just zip through this thing as fast as I can, we're going to probably end up making this thing a 2-parter. I think I'm going to stop at about slide 25. We're on slide 6 right now. So that being said, let's go ahead and just make sure we cover this thing well. So what causes you to age, and what can we do about it? I think those are a lot of questions that people, they may not really know what the causes of aging are, but what can we do about it? We see commercials all the time. We get stuff on social media. Take this thing and look 20 years younger. Lots of things out there. Most of us don't know what we don't know, and I'm one of them. But I love to ask questions, and I love to find out what I don't know. And it's amazing how much I didn't know that. And sometimes you have to ask the question in order to find out. If I said, what causes Alzheimer's? I'm going to get 2 and 3 answers, maybe at most. But if I said, what's the relationship between uric acid and Alzheimer's? All of a sudden, I'll get a ton of information. Well, why didn't it tell me that when I asked the question originally? Because I'm not asking the question the right way to the right search engine. So a lot of things that I do, I go in and, what about this? What about that? What about that? And I can find out stuff that just a normal question doesn't answer. But I think most of us want a healthy retirement. We want to be able to have the time, the money, and the health to do what we want to do. But our health, as with everything else in our body, starts at the cellular level. And so that's what we really need to pay attention to. Aging is a progressive loss of our physiological integrity. We have the ability, our muscles, our balance, our strength, our intellect, our emotions. We have a lot of things that are going on. Aging over time is incremental, and it's a progressive loss of those integral functions of our life. That deterioration takes a long time. Our organs, our muscles, our tissues, our ability to breathe and process oxygen. Lots of things are there, and they deteriorate over time. Our cells are subject to growth, to division, and if left unchecked, certain functions dysfunction. In other words, they're not working the way they're supposed to. In the last year, I've become a very, very staunch supporter of mitochondrial health and support, because if you're damaging the mitochondria in your cells, that means lower energy output, which means now I end up with a lot of problems in my body because I'm not getting what I need to get where it needs to be. And the cells accumulate damaged fragments of things that are just normal processing. So we have ways of cleaning damaged materials out of our cells, but unless you're fasting for more than 18 hours, it never happens. It's called autophagy. Well, I'm not sure we're talking about that today, but we'll probably talk a little bit about it in the process of covering this longevity. But our cells, they have a continuous assault from free radicals. These free radicals come from the foods we eat, from the skin products that we put on us, from pollution in the air, from toxins, from stress, from being overweight. Just so many things lead our bodies. Just normal metabolism generates free radical damage that causes the cells to be inflamed, causes individual molecules to rip electrons off, and that ripping off of an electron stabilizes one electron but causes another one to be a free radical. It's almost like a never-ending story. So over time, DNA damage accumulates. Our bodies can fix it, and when we're young and healthy, a lot of that fixing gets done. But as we get older, things just don't work quite the same way. Our cellular communications weaken a little bit. Senescence, a term for old cells, zombie cells that aren't working the way they're supposed to, start increasing due to that cellular inflammation. Telomere attrition continues. Basically, we get down to a place where the cell no longer operates as a cell, and it's programmed, it's called apoptosis, to basically destroy itself. It's a programmed death. But sometimes they don't die. That's when the zombie cells start taking over, and they have an unhealthy effect on the body. So our cells, they have a function, they have a lifespan. Early on, everything's working, boom. It's hard to find something wrong. Most people 20 and under, it really is. Yeah, you might have injuries here, there, and yonder. You might have a disease because you caught it from someone. But basically, meaning you're growing, things are working, fine. But what about that same thing? Take that person now, 60 years later. They're now 80 years of age. Things aren't working the same. And so what happens over time, aging, the processes, they begin winning the battle of attrition. And as such, I may have the ability to fix something, but I can't fix it fast enough, or I can't fix it as many times as my body is demanding. And so all of a sudden, attrition is winning. Normal cells become abnormal. Aging really begins to show. We see the wrinkles in our faces. We see the color of our hair change. We see fat accumulate around our middle. We see our muscles atrophy. We see a lot of things. Our gait changes, our height changes. All things change because that aging process has locked in and you are aging. But some of these aging processes can be addressed, and that's what I want to go into today. But my primary focus is on healthy lifestyle, because if I'm eating the wrong stuff, I get a different result than if I'm eating the right stuff. Same thing with exercise, same thing with stress, same thing with sleep. So depending on what I'm doing for a healthy lifestyle, I may or may not have a problem. But what are the aging processes? Well, stem cell exhaustion is one, no doubt about it. We're going to talk a lot about that in detail. Body pH. Now, it's one that I added because I think it's a super critical one. And there's a lot about our bodies. The pH is whether you're alkaline or acidic. And if you're acidic below 7.0, you're going to have a lot of problems with disease, because disease loves, particularly cancers, they love that acidic environment to live in. You put them in an alkaline environment over 7.4, which is where the bloodstream has its own 7.35 plus or minus a little bit. That's where it loves to be. So, I was a weightlifter for decades. I ran a lot, ran some several half marathons. I didn't realize that when I went on an Atkins diet and was on it for a number of years, that my body pH became severely acidic. And as such, what I thought I was going to have really strong bones because of everything I was doing, I found out I was not. I actually ended up having osteopenia. And it took me a while to figure out why, because the body's pH caused the bloodstream to leach calcium out of the bones and into the bloodstream to keep it normal. But getting calcium into the bones is a series of processes, and it's not the same processes that you reverse to take it out of the bone. So a lot of things there with the pH. And so I asked myself, well, how does pH affect aging? And as I'm doing my research, there's a lot of things there. The researchers don't consider it to be a hallmark of aging, but I consider it to be a major factor. Telomere attrition, everybody agrees. Telomeres are those little things at the bottom of your DNA. You have this helix that wraps around. Well, it's like a cap on your shoelace. That little cap sits there, and every time that cell divides in two, you lose a little bit of that telomere. Well, you lose enough of it, there's not enough left, the cell dies. It's all programmed. Human growth hormone, when I looked at it several years ago, it was a major cause of aging. As toddlers, we make tons of it. As teenagers, we're making a little less. As 20, 30, 40-year-olds, we're making less and less. By the time you get to 60, 70, you're making a lot less. But it's no longer the same growth hormone in the same quantity. And our instability, epigenetic alterations, loss of proteostasis, deregulated nutrient sensing. All of these are things, these are the hallmarks of aging. Mitochondrial dysfunction, cellular senescence, altered intercellular communications, and more. There's just a lot of stuff there. And so I'm looking at this thing and it talks about hallmarks of aging. Okay. But there's also hallmarks of cancer, hallmarks of health, and hallmarks of this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe I need to write a book on hallmarks. I don't know. Not the greeting cards, but the hallmarks, as they call about. These are the things that absolutely can be measured, that have some biomarker associated with them. So how many are there? Well, I can find articles and say, here are 8, here are 9, here are 10. But it seems like right now that the upper level up is about 12, might be more. But 12 hallmarks of aging. I'll be going through each one of them as we're talking about it. But these are fundamental cellular changes associated with aging. And I want to emphasize cellular. Everything is starting down there in the cell area of the body. So if that's not operating optimally, you're not going to see the same result at the other end. I still think human growth hormone is a cause of aging, but according to the research, it's just not a hallmark of aging. So again, I believe it's a major factor, and I'm going to treat it as such, my show. Human growth hormone, let's talk a little bit about that. The secretion, we make a lot as a toddler. I mean, that's what causes our body to grow. It's in charge. It's the gorilla in the room. It basically controls everything. Our bone development, our tissue organ development, our brain development, everything develops because a human growth hormone is in charge. And it has a plan, and whether you're going to be 5'2" or 6'2", it doesn't matter. It has a plan, and it's going to work that plan. But after we get to mid-age, we start seeing significant decreases in, if I were to say, as a newborn, our bodies are making it, actually when we sleep, and babies sleep a lot, we're making maybe 2,000, if I had to pick a number, 2,000 units of this HGH. But maybe as a 20-year-old, I'm only making 1,000. Maybe as a 40-year-old, I'm only making 800. But maybe by the time I get to be 75, I'm only making 100. So there are things that happen. But when I look at HGH, it's not the HGH, it's the insulin growth factor 1 that's the mediator of HGH. In other words, the HGH is produced in the pituitary gland. It actually stimulates the liver to produce this IGF-1, and that does all of the things that we're talking about here. Activates the growth cycle, regulates our metabolism, controls our synthesis of all the proteins in the body, and a lot of other things they're doing. Just a lot of issues going on. But that's all part of who's in charge. So all of a sudden, that girl in the room is no longer a gorilla. It's just a little chimpanzee. And other things are starting to take control, and nobody's in charge. That's the way I look at it. But if I look at what about the lifestyle factors do they really have anything to do with HGH? Well, I think they do a lot. So HGH is released during our sleep. So sleep, obviously, if I'm having sleep deprivation, I'm having problems with it being delivered. High intensity interval training stimulates HGH. Fasting, again, major stimulation. A 24-hour fast will probably stimulate about 1,000% increase in HGH over not fasting. Stress, again, it impairs or inhibits the development, the creation of HGH. Obesity, again, has a factor on it. So if I'm looking at these things, diet, exercise, stress management, and sleep, quality sleep, those are things that we do every day, but they control how much of our HGH is there. Yes, we may not be fasting all the time, but intermittent fasting helps. An occasional longer term fast helps. Exercise, again, we may not be looking at full tilt out, high intensity, but there are a lot of things there that we can help the human growth hormone be produced. First major one they call a hallmark is genomic instability, and this is what they're terming. It increases the risk of DNA mutation. So I have all these free radicals coming in, making changes, ripping out electrons, and so if it rips out an electron and that electron doesn't stabilize again, yeah, there's a risk of a mutation there. But our immune system comes in, takes care of things, boom, 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 we're back to normal again. But if I'm looking at this thing, instability, our genome is unstable. It's also a hallmark not only of aging, but also a hallmark of cancer. So if my DNA is producing mutations and they're not being controlled by our body's ability to repair itself, then I'm seeing a lot of cancers grow out of that. And that's one of those things that takes decades to happen. So this instability leads to a cellular degeneration. In other words, a cell is no longer functional. The decline is there, disease increases. And so it's considered one of the major hallmarks of aging. It's a key driver. And not only aging, we just talked about it a minute ago, cancer, but also a lot of your degenerative diseases, particularly your neurodegenerative, your Parkinson's, your Alzheimer's, and others. So that's a big one. How can you influence it? Well, if I look at the diet and exercise, both of those have an amazing impact on that instability. So if I'm eating the right foods and I'm exercising, the pathways that lead out from that are changed from producing ill effects to producing good effects or keeping you in the healthy mode. Smoking, obesity exacerbates that genomic instability. Sleep and stress management also contribute to that. So I'm looking at a lot of these things, and genomic instability really has a fairly easy control with lifestyle factors. But again, I have to eat the right kinds of foods, the right amounts of foods. I have to manage my stress. I have to be able to get good quality sleep. I have to be able to look at exercise, not just the mere fact that I'm going out and doing something, but I'm looking at a lot of different kinds of exercises, my balance, my strength, my cardio, a lot of things there. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing the right things. So that's part of the problem. So genomic instability is a key feature of most cancers. So if I can control my lifestyle factors, maybe I can control the risk of cancer. Telomere attrition, that's the little caplet at the end of your DNA. So that DNA is around this helix. Your DNA has a helix. Your RNA just has a single strand that's a spiral. But so your DNA has this thing that's like holding it together. When you get to the end of the cell life, it sort of induces a genomic instability because as you have less and less of a telomere, you have less and less control over what that cell is doing. So toward the end of the cell life, that cell is replicating. If it hasn't had a healthy progression during its life, then you're starting to look at, well, yes, the scientists are saying, okay, I have this excessive amount of attrition. I'm 40 years of age, 50 years of age. I have more attrition than I should have. I reckon it to a roll of pennies. I get 50 pennies in there. It divides. I have 49 now on each end of the telomere. But if I'm overweight, I don't exercise, I smoke, I drink too much alcohol. Maybe instead of losing a single penny, I go from 50 to 45 because that telomere attrition is a lifestyle function. And so I look at how many things can affect that telomere, and a lot of them are the lifestyle factors. So as it gets older and then you get toward the end of your attrition, at least to cellular senescence, in other words, aging of the cell, a lot of age-related diseases. Again, we're looking at natural aging processes, and from the gene perspective, about 60% of our genes have some aspect of being affected by this telomere cellular senescence. Inflammation, oxidation, they induce a faster attrition. So my free radical damage, unabated, now becomes oxidative stress, becomes a faster cause of distress and aging. Lifestyle factors, poor diet choices, smoking, alcohol, they accelerate the telomere attrition. Regular exercise, you end up with, literally, it's reducing the attrition. So you end up with a longer telomere length, and it's kind of a reverse thinking. I'm not losing as much, so I keep more of what I have. Chronic stress, toxins, obesity, again, faster attrition. Poor quality sleep, faster attrition. All of these are lifestyle factors, things that we can control. So if we can control them, why not do something? Epigenetic alterations, again, another hallmark according to the researchers. It's the expression of your genetic code. Genes can be changed and passed on. My parents gave me the genes that I have. My wife and I pass genes on to our kids, et cetera. So the genes are passed on, but the DNA is not changed. In other words, the gene is there, but it's the interpretation of the gene. It's not a DNA mutation that's telling the cell to go do something. The cell is not getting it's getting the information, but it's not interpreting it correctly. So it's an alteration in the epigenetics of that cell. That cell says, okay, I want you to go out and do this and this and this. But it gets to the cell, and the cell is saying, what? And all of a sudden, it's not operating the way it should. So it's not a DNA mutation, although we have problems with that. But this is a situation where the change is happening, but it's not being interpreted properly. So, and this affects our genes, whether they're turned on or off. And so that's the big deal. We think about epigenetics. Okay, I have a gene for breast cancer. Okay, my lifestyle choices can affect whether a gene will be turned on or off. Now, sometimes we want a particular gene turned on because it's a healthy option for us. Sometimes we want that gene turned off because it will result in a cancer or something else. Alzheimer's has certain kinds of genes that are associated with it. So if I can turn on a gene that's supposed to be on and turn off a gene that's supposed to be off, that's the best of all worlds, because those genes affect our cell growth, the cell development, our aging, our ability, our risk of getting diseases. So I'm looking at what happens to that DNA when these things happen. Well, there's a thing where you add a methyl group, and a methyl group is just a simple small chemical group, a CH, calcium, carbon and hydrogen group that gets added to. It's called methylation. It gets added to your DNA, and when it gets added in there, it's like somebody shut off, put me on mute. It leads to gene silencing. In other words, that gene is no longer talking. So what I expect coming out of my DNA isn't what's coming out of my DNA. So that DNA is also wrapped around a protein. In other words, that helix is called histones. And if that histone is modified in any way, it has a nice geometric molecular shape. It prevents accessibility of that DNA to talk to the cells and do what needs to happen. So my DNA is my genetic blueprint. It's me. It's who I am. It's a double helix. But it also requires RNA. In other words, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Well, the RNA is a ribonucleic acid, and it's a single spiral, not a double helix. But it has a specific function of controlling the synthesis of proteins and where they need to go, when they need to go there. Very, very important for our health and our growth. But part of that RNA coding is non-protein. And when I have the alteration of that RNA, it actually causes a gene expression that I don't want. So I have DNA methylation, I have histone modifications. They generally lead toward cancers. The DNA is unchanged. It just doesn't operate the same way it used to. The interpretation of that, because communications can't get in or things are silenced, as such, most of these things can be reversed. But if we don't know it, what's going to happen? It doesn't happen. So, so the key to me when I'm looking at this epigenetic alterations is the key is diet. If I'm getting the right minerals to the right place, the right nutrients, things should happen. So diet is key to minimize the epigenetic alteration. Again, a lifestyle factor. I have exercise minimizes the alterations. Toxin and pollutions exacerbate it. So I tell people, become a reader. Look at the labels, know what's going in your body, make choices. If there's 25 things in a product you're buying, particularly if you're putting it on your skin, chances are there's something in there you really don't want. Getting good quality sleep, controlling your alcohol, smoking, obviously, sleep deprivation, they all affect the alterations, the epigenetic alteration. They're all lifestyle choices. So we have the ability to minimize, reduce the pollution, toxins, quit smoking, minimize alcohol, get a better quality sleep. Those are things that will lead to a better life. Okay, getting here toward the end. I was thinking I wasn't going to be quite this far along, so I may end up just truncating this particular process. Otherwise, next week when I come back, it's going to be a very short one. So let me finish up here with loss of proteostasis, and we're going to call it a day. Protein homeostasis is what normally happens. This is what manages everything, our proteins, which proteins are synthesized, how they're folded, how they're transported, and the overall degradation and elimination of them down the road. So I want my proteins to operate normally. That's the management of my proteins. Well, protein homeostasis is responsible, as I guess, for the protein management. But the body needs periodically, let's say I need a replacement protein in my heart, in my lung, in my kidney, in my liver, in my brain. The body talks to itself. It says, okay, stem cells can produce this, or I can take an existing one. Protein homeostasis gets the right protein to the right place, folded the right way, transported on time, boom, it gets replaced. Everybody's happy. But when that replacement is needed and the protein structure is not happening because it's not being made, now I have a problem. So if I have loss of proteostasis, that means that I'm no longer getting the proteins where I need them. Proteins are typically removed when they're no longer functional. And so we just don't know what's going on, and that's part of the problem. So this loss of proteostasis typically results more so in metabolic disorders, cancers, cardiac issues, but a lot in neurodegenerative diseases. In fact, the last count, I had 32 of them that I looked at the other day as to what diseases does this particular hallmark of aging cause. And 32 is more than a fair amount, something that we should be considerate of it. And as I'm starting to look at people aging, what kinds of problems do we have? A lot of cancers, a lot of heart issues, a lot of obesity, metabolic issues, not to mention the dementia and things in there. So I'm going to call it quits after this slide just to give my production engineer an update. Loss of proteostasis, it's age related, something that typically happens. And when that happens, proteins aggregate. They're not supposed to, but they do. Exercise activates the protein pathways and improves that protein homeostasis. So if I'm exercising, I have certain pathways, and I'll be talking about those, I think, in the next slide when I'm talking about a different topic. I have pathways that everything follows. So if I want to make sure that I'm having this protein delivered here because it's going to improve this, I need that. Diet, the anti-inflammatory diet primarily improves our protein homeostasis. Again, a lifestyle factor. Chronic stress, sleep deprivation, smoking, toxins, all are things that are hurting our ability to remain healthy. Again, cancers, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, a lot of issues because of this particular hallmark of aging. So if I look at, I can control my diet. I control how much I eat, what I eat, when I eat. I can control when I fast, how long that fast is. I can control my sleep, eliminate smoking, eliminate toxins. But all these things are things we do literally every day. But again, awareness, maybe I wasn't aware of it. Well, part of the show is to help that out. So I could go on, but I'm not going to be able to do justice to what I want to talk about next. So I'm going to call it quits here at slide number 25. And let's see here. We'll finish this topic up next week as part 2 and cover the rest of the hallmarks of aging. And I'm thinking about maybe even doing a section on hallmarks of cancer or hallmarks of health, because it was a kind of a researching thing. Oh, didn't know that. Okay, now I know it. I can do something. But if you need to reach me and you want to suggest a topic, go ahead and contact me. Go to my website, get my email address, get my phone number, call me on the phone. I'll answer it. But red.olaughlin@gmail.com. That's when I check several times a day. If you call me, leave a message, text me, it's okay. I just not as responsive. Send me a social media message. I generally respond to those relatively quickly. But that's the way to reach me, and I'd love to have you as a guest on either one of my shows, The Corner Bookstore, if you have anything to do with writing or publishing or part of the book industry. And if you're just somebody's been around the block a few times, you're an entrepreneur, you own a business, join me on The Wise Ones and go to usaglobaltv.com. That's usaglobaltv.com. Book your session. I'm down there toward the bottom of the page. Find me, click on the calendar, and the rest is self-evident. So with that, I'm going to conclude today's show, and I look forward to catching everyone next week. And I'm going to go have a very, very, very happy 57th wedding anniversary today. Take care, y'all. Bye now.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/usaglobaltv. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.